What's up, guys? This is your boy Aaron with the Not a Casual MMA podcast. And today's episode, we will be recapping UFC 247. Man, everyone's been talking about it. It was a great card. And of course, I will be giving my opinion on Jon Jones versus Dominic Reyes. Yes, I think Jon Jones won. Stay tuned for the Not a Casual MMA podcast. What's up, guys? Once again, it is Aaron with the Not a Casual MMA podcast, and I am here to discuss UFC 247, man. Just a little background on the Not a Casual MMA podcast. It's hosted by me, Aaron Diaz, and my cousin Brian Diaz. Today, it'll be just me, Aaron, recapping this event, and I'm going to give you my thoughts, my feelings, my reactions to this event. And yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. I don't consider myself a casual, obviously, the name of the UFC of the podcast. I'm an avid supporter of the MMA scene, fairly new to it, but man, in the little bit of time that I've been studying and watching UFC, I've really dove into it. I've watched tons of fights, watched tons of these guys, tons of the up-and-comers, and just made sure I really brushed up on my knowledge of all the different combat sports and all the mixed martial arts that there are out there, or martial arts are out there that make up this competitive sport. And so I think my opinion is pretty valid. I do try my best to watch every card, everything from the prelims all the way up into the main event. And so yeah, man, I've watched my good share of fights. I know the names. I've seen the fights. I know I know the strategies. I know what people do. And so, yeah, man, let's get right into it. Everyone was kind of underwhelmed with this pay-per-view going into it, and I was always excited to see the GOAT, Jon Jones, defend his title, and especially against such a good up-and-comer like Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes seemed to prove himself, and at this point last year, it was kind of him and Johnny Walker. You knew one of them two was going to emerge as a number one contender and make their way to a title fight at some point this year. And Dominic Reyes obviously impressed, stayed undefeated, knocked out a legend in Chris Weidman, and earned his spot as a number one contender. Johnny Walker obviously lost to Corey Anderson. And so Jon Jones said on his Twitter that he and his team made the decision that Dominic Reyes was a way bigger threat than Corey Anderson. And so there we have it. That's when the Dominic Reyes Jon Jones fight got announced. And leading up to this, man, I'm not gonna be fake and say I thought Reyes had a chance. I just thought it was another day in the office for the GOAT, Jon Jones, and I didn't see what Reyes brought to the table that was different or better than anyone Jon Jones has fought. You know, if you look at his resume, he's literally fought the best of the best in the light heavyweight division. Not just the light heavyweight division, but a lot of middleweights that moved up and nominated in the middleweight division. He's faced and beat. You look at his resume; it's just impressive. I mean, even going all the way back to Ryan Bader, who's the champ over at Bellator, he submitted Ryan Bader pretty easily. And so I just thought Dominic Reyes wasn't really gonna pose a threat, but man, he impressed me Saturday night. But let's get into that a little later. First of all, let's recap the fight of the prelims, I like to call it, which is James Krause stepping up to fight on 24-hour notice against Trevin Giles. And not to mention, James Krause usually fights at lightweight, and this fight was at middleweight. So this dude came to the fight to corner someone and jumped up 2 weight classes to fight Trevin Giles, and I thought he won the fight. I thought he won the fight 2-1. I thought he took the first and the third round, and he lost a split decision loss. But in some cases, a loss is a win, and I think James Krause moving up 2 weight classes, no training camp, to fight up-and-comer like Trevin Giles in the middleweight division is huge, right? James Krause made weight just because he walks around at that weight, okay? Trevin Giles probably is at least a solid 25 30 pounds heavier than him walking into that fight, at least. And James Krause had him on his back for like 4 minutes in that first round, just completely showed his skill, his will to win, his domination, and it was a great fight. I believe it got fight of the night. And so shout out to James Krause for accepting that fight on short notice and putting up the show that he did. Let's get right into the main card, man. First fight on the card was Derek Lewis and then Ilir Latifi. I kind of questioned the position of this fight on the card. I just kind of thought the number 6 ranked heavyweight should kind of be maybe the third fight on the card, just below the champions defending their title. Derek Lewis is obviously a main attraction. The event was in Houston, his hometown, and a lot of people came out to see him. And so I was surprised to see that this was the first fight on the card. Nevertheless, it was an interesting fight. Latifi moves up from light heavyweight, after a couple tough fights at light heavyweight, and he gets the number 6 heavyweight in his first fight. I didn't think it was a smart move by Latifi, especially coming up from light heavyweight where he was ranked number 12, I believe, in light heavyweight. So moving up and getting the number 6 contender in the heavyweight division, not knowing how he would do. He doesn't seem like a bigger guy. He always mentioned how the weight cut was hard for him, but you can tell Derek Lewis is just way bigger than him. Latifi said in the pre-fight interviews that he walks around at around 245, so he was really happy that this camp he didn't have to lose weight. He didn't have to worry about cutting weight. He could just focus on, kind of honing and sharpening his skills. And so I was kind of worried going into it, man, but it was a good fight. Latifi proved me wrong. I think he really does belong in the heavyweight division. I think for him not having to cut really helps him perform at his best. It was a really, really good fight. Some people had Latifi winning it. I had Derek Lewis personally winning it. And let's talk about Derek Lewis throwing flying knees. Come on, man. If you asked anyone a couple years ago if they ever would imagine seeing Derek Lewis throwing flying knees, you think they'd be crazy, right? Crazy. Derek Lewis throwing flying knees? Yeah, right. But he did, man, and he accredited it all to the shape he's gotten in. He has a nutritionist. He's eating better. He's losing weight naturally. So going into fight week, he's not having to cut as much. He's becoming more lean. You can see it in his face. You can see it in his body. It's changing, and ultimately is making him a better MMA fighter, right? It's making him a better athlete. And I think the controversy in this fight was the fact that Latifi was able to score some takedowns against Derek Lewis, and it's just always weird, man. There's not like a set system as to how takedowns are scored. In some fights they seem to matter more than others, and I think maybe Derek Lewis's striking was so impressive this fight that the takedowns didn't mean much, but it's a tough call. You never know in the judge's eyes how much those takedowns are going to weigh. And so, unfortunately for Latifi, they didn't seem to sway the judge's opinion in his way, and Derek Lewis got the win. I was impressed with the fight. I liked the fight. I'm not mad at the Latifi move up to heavyweight, and I definitely think Derek Lewis is still one of the top contenders in the heavyweight division. I was looking at the rankings. I'm not sure why he's fallen to number 6, especially because he hasn't lost recently. And so, anyways, yeah, shout out to Derek Lewis. Another win under his belt. I was watching the ESPN post show, and he's at 14 wins in the light heavyweight. He's at 14 wins in the heavyweight division, which is, I think he's like 4th on that list now, which is crazy impressive, especially since he started his UFC career. I think they were saying, a little over 4 years ago. And so for him to already have 14 wins in that heavyweight division tells you he's doing something right. His camps are going well, and the fact that he's just getting better is kind of scary for those guys. Next we had Ige fight Bektic, and that was a good fight. I agree with the judges. Ige took that fight. I love the featherweight division. Full disclosure, my favorite fighter is Max Holloway, and so the featherweight division is something I follow closely just to kind of understand who was up and coming and who would be a contender for Max Holloway when he was a champ. And then Ige made a smart move, man. He started calling out some of the top 10 guys in the featherweight division, which I think after his impressive streak, he deserves, man. He put on a good performance, won by decision in this fight, and I think he deserves a top 10 name in the featherweight division, if not a top 15. He's currently unranked, which I think is blasphemous. And there's a lot of good fights in the featherweight division, man. There's a lot of talented kids, a lot of talented fighters there, a lot of people that would put on a show with Ige, and so let's give him what he wants. Let's give him a top contender in the featherweight division. I think he's earned it. I think he's capable, and I want to see it happen, man. Dana White, make it happen. The powers that be at the UFC matchmaking offices, make it happen. Next fight, we had Juan Adams versus Justin Tafa. Okay, Justin Tafa coming off of a loss. Juan Adams coming off of a loss. Was not excited to see this fight, and let alone on the main card in the pay-per-view. But I guess when you have knockout artists or big boys, heavyweight fighters, you want to put them on the card, just I guess to make it more exciting. Juan Adams, man, again gets knocked out. This last fight got knocked out by Greg Hardy. Now Justin Tafa. Man, he even made the switch to Jackson Wink in New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was kind of excited to see him come in. A new gym kind of usually sparks a new energy in a fighter, and he just kind of went out there and looked the same. He's 5-3 now in his MMA career. I don't know what's next for him, man. I don't know. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I'd pay to see a Juan Adams fight, man. Justin Tafa made a statement. He's going to be exciting to watch in the heavyweight division, especially the big boys knocking each other out, and he brings that to the table. And so I'm excited to see him get there. Him kind of like a lot of other heavyweights, man, just kind of rely a little too much on their knockout power. I want to see them get a little better in technique. I want to see them, add a couple skills to their arsenal. But for now, I guess if it's working, why fix it, right? Why fix what's not broken? If your knockout power is getting you the wins, then stick to it, right? Shout out Justin Tafa, good win. And yeah, man, looking forward to seeing where I see you next. All right, the co-main event: Valentina Shevchenko versus Caitlin Schukagan. And this fight went, I think, pretty much like everyone predicted it would be. No offense to Caitlin, and she came in saying all the right things. She was excited to fight Valentina. She was training hard. She was saying Valentina never faced anyone like her, and unfortunately for her, she was fighting Valentina. She's an awesome fighter, but the gap in that women's flyweight division is huge, man, huge. Valentina is just light years ahead of everyone else in that division. She put on a show. She brilliant striking, brilliant grappling. She ended the fight on a ground and pound. And Caitlin just kind of never really stood a chance, man, as much as it hurts to say that, because I know she's an awesome fighter. She's great. She's a clear top contender in that division, but the gap between Valentina and clear contenders in that division is just becoming greater and greater. And I think it's very obvious that the fight that needs to be made is her and Amanda Nunes 3. A lot of people, including myself, believe that Valentina took that last fight against Amanda. Amanda kind of escaped by with a close call. I wouldn't say it's a robbery. It was a good fight, but I do think that Shevchenko won that fight, and so it should be 1-1 heading into this trilogy fight. So let's give the people what they want. I don't see any other contender in the flyweight division that could even keep up with Valentina right now, and Amanda's kind of distanced herself from the division as well. And so let's make that fight happen for the people. Either make the Amanda Nunes 3 fight, or Zaylee moves up and fights for the champ. I think Valentina and Zaylee would make a great fight. They would be awesome, man. They would be awesome. I don't see where we could go wrong with that fight. I believe Weili Zhang. Sorry, I call her Zaylee. Weili Zhang. She's fighting on that UFC 248 card against Joanna. She is the co-main defending her strawweight title. She is the co-main to Israel Adesanya and Yoel Romero. And that's going to be a good card, man. Not to get too far ahead, but I think that's going to be a great card. The UFC has us kind of spoiled over these next couple months. Every weekend, back to back to back, great cards that they're putting together. A lot of good up-and-comers, a lot of good championship fights. We're just spoiled. But anyways, Valentina Shevchenko, if Weili Zhang escapes Joanna, which I think she will handle pretty convincingly. No offense to Joanna, but Weili Zhang is just kind of distancing herself from that division as well. And I think we're going to have a three-way race for the best woman fighter in the world right now amongst the UFC champions. All right, man, let's get into it. The controversial, the fight that everyone's talking about from this card, Jon Jones versus Dominic Reyes. First and foremost, man, I'm going to give a shout out to Dominic Reyes. I will not lie and say that you did not surprise me. I did not expect that from Dominic Reyes. He fought the fight of his life, and he did well, man. He did better than anyone's ever done against Jon Jones. And a lot of people have been winning that fight 3-2. And at first watch, I had Jon Jones winning that fight 3-2, and I'll get into that a little later. And but a lot of people had Dominic Reyes winning 1-3, and which I'm not mad at. I'm not saying that that's not a valid opinion. I'm just upset at the fact that so many people are saying that it was clear. The thing about this fight is that there was nothing clear about it. Okay, the only two clear things that we can take from this fight are that Jon Jones definitely won the 5th round. Dominic Reyes won the 1st round. 2, 3, and 4 are as up in the air as any rounds get, and the consensus is that Jon Jones won the 4th round pretty clearly. So we're talking about rounds 2 and 3, where people are just amazed by the flurries that Dominic Reyes threw. And he kept himself super busy. But I want to talk about a couple things why Dominic Reyes didn't win this fight. If you watch the fight, a lot of the criticism that Jon Jones is getting is for running and avoiding Dominic Reyes. I don't know what fight you guys were watching. If you rewatch the fight, you will see that Jon Jones controlled the octagon 90% of that fight. He was walking Dominic Reyes down 90% of that fight. Dominic Reyes only advanced to throw some combos, and then he would retreat and run around the octagon. Jon Jones controlled the octagon that entire fight. Reyes looked so much busier than he actually was. A couple people now have put out a video of the 2nd round, this flurry that Dominic Reyes threw in the beginning of the round that looked amazing. Jon Jones even put out the video and said, this is his highlight of the round, and look. And as you watch the footage, you realize, man, Dominic Reyes isn't really connecting with much. There's a lot that looks like are hitting, and then Jon Jones is evading them. His head movement was great. His body movement was great. There's a lot of times in those flurries where Dominic Reyes looked extremely busy but was doing no damage to Jon Jones. And I think that's a problem that a lot of people are avoiding, is they want to reward Dominic Reyes for being busy. Okay, this is MMA. If you're throwing that many punches and not landing, then you're being inaccurate. You're wasting your energy. A lot of things that people are disregarding as well, or a big thing that people are disregarding as well, is the fact that Dominic Reyes, the last 3 minutes of every round, was a different person than he was the first 2. I don't know how you can win a round and only win the first 2 minutes of it. Okay? If you watch this fight, every round, Dominic Reyes starts off really strong, throws a ton of punches, tons of strikes. It looks like he's hitting Jon Jones a ton. And then about the halfway point of the round, Dominic Reyes is breathing with his mouth open. He's retreating. He's not throwing as much. And it's almost like he's starting off fast, blitzing Jon Jones, trying to get him off on his toes. And John Jones just kept walking him down and walking him down. And Dominic Reyes would start to fade in the late stages of each round. Not trying to take away from Dominic Reyes, but I want to put in perspective this overreaction that's occurring right now. And it happens anytime someone does good against John Jones. And we're so used to John Jones giving us these great performances that when he has a competitor who has years and years of footage to prepare from, who does well in a fight against him, it's almost like we're naturally inclined to give him that fight. And we start omitting little details that we normally wouldn't from judging any other fight, just so that we can prove or feel okay in saying that John Jones lost. And I'm not here for that. I'm not with that, because he didn't lose. He won rounds 2, 4, and 5, and to the judge that gave him 4-1, I can see how you gave him the third round as well. There's a lot to be said for being technically sound in a fight. If that did not matter, which I see a lot of people online justifying, if his defense did not matter, if his technicality did not matter, if his ring control didn't matter, then why do we even have a judging system? What's the point? If all you care about is who gets hit the most and who knocks someone out, why do we need judges? Why not just throw the fighters in there for rounds, and then first one to get a knockdown, the first one to knock the other one and got the other guy down wins? Because that seems to be the only objective way of judging now, because we don't want to give credit where credit's due. We don't want to take into consideration all the ways that John Jones dominated Dom Reyes, and we want to justify his win by, he outstruck him. Well, let's talk about those striking numbers. Dominic Reyes threw almost 100 more punches than John Jones, or strikes. Threw almost 100 more strikes than John Jones. He only outstruck John Jones by 12. Now that's crazy to me, that you can throw over 100 more punches than someone and only outstrike him by 12. Okay, we're disregarding the fact that John Jones' accuracy was at an all-time high. In the first round, he hit him 67% of the time. 67. Okay? John Jones' accuracy was amazing in that fight. He was just picking Dominic apart. And we're so inclined to just be like, man, someone did good against John Jones. They beat him. And it's simply not true. John Jones won this fight 3 rounds to 2. And it was pretty evident. And I think the same thing as in the Thiago Santos fight, when everyone was so excited for Thiago Santos, who beat the champ, and the champ robbed him, and he was supposed to be the new champ. And I think once the hype dies down and we watch the footage for what it is, we're going to realize John Jones put on another masterpiece. He really did. All right, guys. Well, that's your boy Aaron with the Not a Casual MMA podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Be on the lookout for more podcasts. I'm going to break down the John Jones Dominic Reyes fight a little more fully, and look forward to hearing from you guys. Comment below. Make sure that you like the podcast. And yes, see you soon. Not a Casual MMA podcast.